can work it out. 'Cause giving in is oh so hard when love is at stake. Where there's a will, there's a way. Now if we only knew how. Learning to love, learning to laugh and fear, learning to fight through these years. Let's bring us closer together. Learning to love, learning the first golden rule, knowing that anything is possible. 'Cause nothing's gonna keep us from, nothing's gonna keep us from learning the ropes.
Oh, yeah. Greetings and salutations, everybody. And welcome back to Learning the Ropes. I'm XLJ, the OG, joined by my partner in crime, my brother from another mother, Mr. B-Roll. How you doing out there, bro? Throwing it up, throwing it up.
It is good. It is good to be back in the saddle again. You know we can't be talking about Degeneration X and leave you hanging without your tag team partner.
That's right. That is right. We're glad to have you back, sir. Back in the saddle again, as they say. And tonight, yes, folks, we are talking all things Degeneration X as we continue on talking about factions all this month here on Learning the Ropes. And you gotta, I mean, how could we not talk about DX, right? I mean, come on, it's Degeneration X. Regardless of how you feel about a certain someone, yes, I can put aside my not huge fandom of Shawn Michaels, but you got to acknowledge Degeneration X is a hell of a faction, one of the all-time great factions. Waiting for something there. You had this look on your face.
I was reading that, and I was trying to process.
Oh man,
the Madres got me. It got me.
I got you, brother.
It got me.
Well, it's good to have you back nonetheless. And hey, as we always do here on Learn the Ropes, we can only kick it off one way. Am I right, Mr. B-Roll? And that's a little plug-a-palooza. What you say, my friend?
All right. It's been a minute since I've done one of these, so let's see if I can get loose and get into it.
Oh,
we thank you for joining us over here on Cole TV. If you're not already subscribed, what are you doing with your life? We got 2 awards for you. You can subscribe now.
Oh. See what we did there?
We did there. Yeah, make sure you hit that subscribe button, though. It helps us out tremendously and immensely. I'm using big words tonight.
Big words.
Big
words. Indeed.
Yes. But make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because we got tons of wrestling content coming for you and much, much more. I do believe I'm gonna take a stab here. I'm gonna take a stab at it. We got Learn the Ropes here tonight. We got PW60 tomorrow, which is Monday, getting you ready, recapping the whole week of professional wrestling, getting you ready for the new week of professional wrestling. And then, is there anything else for this week?
Yes, Wednesday, we got a brand new episode of The Hunt. And this is a very special one because it is Free Comic Book Day. That's right. So I got to check out one of our local shops here in town, a little place called M&M Comics. You can tune in and see what all sorts of goodies I picked up, what free comics we got. So that's what's coming to you.
Do they sell M&Ms? That's the real question there.
No, but they did have them available as like to celebrate Comic Book Day as a refreshment, if you will. So that's coffee. Yeah, all the accoutrement was there. A nice setup, a nice spread, if you will. But that's what you got coming on Cole TV. Hey, B-Roll.
Hey,
check out this shirt.
I can dig it, sucker.
Yeah. You know where I got it?
Where?
Got it over at sweetdollfacecreations.bigcartel.com, where you can get all of your Cole TV merch. Got everything from Learning the Ropes shirts to we have our Cole TV shirts, Cole TV hats, and of course we've got our chubby shirts over there as well. You can check that out all over on sweetdollfacecreations.bigcartel.com.
Oh, look at you being all handy dandy and putting the link right there.
There you go. It's just as easy as that, folks. So check out the link, buy some merch, and hey, you can get merch from some of your other favorite Wrestle Talk content creators on there as well. Well, that being said, Mr. B-Roll, we got a lot to talk about here with Degeneration X.
Let's give them something to talk about.
That's right. And of course, for this episode, you knew we had to pull out the big guns and we are going to bring him in right now. Let's bring him in. The Wrestle Talk Drip God himself, Hambone. Yeah.
What is up, you fucking degenerates?
I
Oh, love it.
I switched it up on you. Switched it up.
You did indeed, sir.
What's up, fellas?
Hey, man, we're doing great. We're so happy to have you with us tonight as we're going to do this deep dive on Degeneration X. And I know you are one of the biggest marks out there for the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels himself. We may have MWO join us here in a little bit. Not quite sure there. He's got a couple things going on. It sounds like, right, Mr. B-Roll? But he may be joining us here in a little bit.
He's got adulting things to do.
Yeah, that's right.
He found out that I was going to be here, and then he was like, "Oh, I'm not as big a fan of Shawn Michaels as him, so I should probably just not show up."
Oh, he just called you out.
As you were saying in the pre-show, I mean, he's been ducking you for like a full year.
I mean, I've been trying to go live with this guy forever, and he's always got some kind of excuse. He's got kids, responsibilities.
I got kids.
We here at Cold TV and Learning the Ropes, we're all about mending fences, so we will see what we can do.
They have a surprise run in here before the end of the night, but we'll have to see. But I think when you're talking the history of DX, Hambone, I think we got a very first look at like kind of the very early blueprint for that, which I would say is the Click. I mean, if you don't have the Click, do you have Degeneration X?
Very true. I don't think so. And I think, if you look back at like the formation of DX, I mean, even Triple H and Shawn have, said themselves that, we're kind of lucky that DX even happened, because it's pretty well known that they did not want a lot of the Click on camera together because of their backstage antics. So they finally gave in and let Triple H and Shawn start doing some stuff, and we got DX.
Yeah, and the rest, they say, is history. But man, oh man, it's just so interesting, like how and yeah, NWO, and trust me, we're going to talk NWO next week here on Learning the Ropes. Just a little sneak peek for that ahead. But I mean, if you think about it, there's no Click, like, do you even have an NWO? I mean, because Nash and Hall were, the guys who really started that in WCW. Of course, when they jumped over and signed the contract. And if you think about it too, the infamous moment there in Madison Square Garden, where the curtain call, if you will, like, if that doesn't happen, like, I mean, there's just so many amazing things, if you think about it, love them or hate them, that came out of the Click. And I mean, you're talking like two of the biggest factions of all time formed outside of that. So you got to give them credit where credit's due.
Yeah, I don't think if you don't have the rebellious, cool factor attitude of all the members of the Click, then you don't get either group without them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very true. And I mean, you think about that too, with that curtain call and just that moment, which is insane to think we're still talking about to this day, and that was a house show essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But and just so happens to be, they're so fortunate enough there was a fan there who was filming it on his old school ginormous camera that somehow he keistered into the garden. I don't know how, but thank God he did, because we have the footage to show still to this day.
Yep.
But I mean, if that moment doesn't happen, I think the crowd kind of got a little bit of a taste of what the Click was all about. And I think sprinkled in throughout the time frame there of 95 to 96, you got little pieces of that attitude that you're talking about essentially. And I think really with where the WWF was in 97, to where it was their backs were up against the wall. This has been talked about a multitude of occasions where WCW was just putting a hurting on them, and it's WWF had to think outside the box. No more cookie cutter bullshit. I've got a job plumbing toilets gimmicks, or I drive race cars or anything like that. That shit's got to go. So definitely Degeneration X added that realism, and they were the perfect storm at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too to think about, when we're talking about the curtain call, because it was something that nobody in the wrestling industry wanted to get out into the public. You know, they didn't want that seen because you expose the business. But if you really think about it, you know, if that didn't happen, if that one fan did not have that video camera and did not get that out, how different wrestling would probably be right now. Not even, you know, do we get the NWO? Do we get DX? Do we even get the Attitude Era without something like that getting out?
It's very true, because I mean, it was so ahead of its time and so outside of the box and the norm. And I mean,
Yeah.
I think it just showed them, like, you know, we got to change this up, and this is the way. This is what the future holds. This is what it's going to be, is more reality based programs and not a bunch of like bullshit, essentially.
Yeah. I'd go
Um,
so far as to say that that fan has a hand in wrestling becoming what it is today, because I don't know that it would have become popular. I don't know that we would have gotten the Attitude Era. I don't know that we would have had that boom period. I don't know that WWE would be the company that it is today had that tape not gone out.
you know, it's crazy to think about it, but it's so true. Like, I mean, if it just didn't get as sensationalized as it did, I mean, we may be talking a different story. We may be talking about the lineage of like World Championship Wrestling still going strong to this day. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's just crazy to think like that one moment was so pivotal, not only in the formation of Degeneration X, but in all professional wrestling.
Yeah.
And then if you look back at the WWF at that time frame, you know, they're trying to put on counter program to World Championship Wrestling. So it's nothing about like gang warfare and that gang mentality. You know, you look at the NWO and their dominance of just destroying everybody in WCW. Well, look at the WWF in '97 before DX formed. I mean, you still have factions there. You had the Nation of Domination. You had the Disciples of Apocalypse. You had Los Boricas, just to name a few. But it's, to me, it's really interesting, like how Degeneration X officially like got their name, because as you know, Hambone, it all really came stemming out of a promo by Shawn Michaels' arch nemesis, Bret Hart.
That's
on
right.
an episode of Raw.
Your boy.
That's right.
That's right.
Right behind me here. I don't know if you can see him, but yeah. But yeah, it's just crazy to think. And Bret was like, "You bunch of degenerates," and then Shawn's like, "Yeah, we're we're Degeneration X." And
Yep.
man, think about it too. Like just the name rolls right off your tongue, Degeneration X. Especially if you look back at what they were doing at that time frame, it just made perfect sense.
Yeah, especially if you look. I mean, again, like you said, it's just the time period, the era that we were in. You know, everything was kind of about Generation X at that time and that moment. That's what we were talking about, just in pop culture in general. So,
Absolutely.
like you said, it does just roll off the tongue. It's a cool sounding name. You know, it was everything you want in a faction name.
Yep. And you can shorten it to like DX to make it like even more marketable, and it's just literally like perfect case scenario of catching lightning in a bottle and just like boom.
Yeah, it really was. And I mean, like you're saying, in pop culture, I mean, my gosh, everything was about, you know, we talk about the Attitude Era, but I mean, that's what life was in the late 90s. It's all about having an attitude. You know, you had shows like Jerry Springer that was like in your face and stuff. You had marketing campaigns like, you know, you got to go do snowboarding and drink a Surge. Yeah. And
everything was about everything was about being rebellious and extreme and all. I mean, that was the 90s.
Yeah, and I mean, it really didn't get much more extreme than Degeneration X, man. Which, you know,
ECW.
Well, okay, but ECW is another monster unto itself. I guess in the WWF, how's that? Doesn't get more extreme than
Sorry, I was using the Peacock earlier, and I was watching, you know, one of the DX documentaries on there, and in preparation, you know how it plays a suggestion afterwards.
Was it ECW?
It went into an ECW thing.
You know what? Let's just throw this out there. How would have DX have done in ECW? What if DX was in ECW? Let's just throw a fantasy booking. Could you have imagined that?
I feel like, because again, you know, in the time period that we're talking about in the 90s, everything was about being rebellious and things like that. They could have went to ECW and it would have been over, and they could have went to WCW and done DX and it would have been over. It was the time period. That's the kind of stuff that people wanted to watch.
I was gonna say my first thoughts were somebody probably may have died.
Yeah, because I mean, you know,
I don't
you
think they would have been told no, like about anything.
Exactly. That's kind of where I was thinking about. Is like, wow, there's no filter for them. I mean, they could tell as many dick jokes as they want.
Yeah, also true.
And they told plenty of dick jokes all throughout the years. But now from you know, we got to talk about the first incarnation of Degeneration X. You know, we've been talking Shawn and Triple H, obviously, you know, they're the equivalent really of, like, I would say Ric Flair and Arn Anderson to the Horsemen. You just can't have DX without one or the other. But there's another name we got to mention here, and that's China. You got to China was such an integral part of Degeneration X. It's not even funny. Like, I mean, you know, people have talked about China, the late great China. And I mean, that is a female, that is just a person in general. We're so way ahead of her time. Like, and the thing is like, I feel like Shawn and Hunter, how they treated her, they didn't treat her like, you know, as their heavy or as their, you know, they treated her as an equal. And that's what made it work and made her all the more intimidating, because it's just like, holy shit, you know, I got to deal with Shawn and Hunter. Oh, and China on top of that. And China, just the way she was presented on television was just this, you know, this monster of a goddess, if you will. I mean, just the muscles, just the look alone, like, and that's the thing too with China. She didn't have to say a damn thing. All you had to do was just look at her facial expressions, and you knew, like, you didn't want to fuck with her.
I think one of the other reasons that China worked in DX, and especially with, you know, Hunter and Shawn too, was, yeah, as we've kind of alluded to, Hunter and Shawn at that point, I mean, they're just over the fucking top with everything when it comes to DX. You know, they're kind of being they're being given some of that, you know, that leash. You know, leash is getting a little bit longer. Go out, try some stuff, see how far you can get. And China was just the perfect straight man to that. You know, to see her, you know, there were times where it was almost like she was a motherly figure watching her two dumbass stepsons and just like rolling her eyes. And then at other times she'd join in on the sophomoric stuff. And then when that happened, it was even funnier and cooler. Like, oh, they got China to get on this, who usually doesn't deal with this bullshit that they're doing. But even she's playing along here.
I mean, the promos they had during this time frame too, it was just like, it was so damn entertaining week to week, because you just knew it was going to be something over the top. Didn't know what the hell they were going to do next. Like you mentioned, like China, where she gets involved. I'll never forget. I think they have like a grill barbecue thing, and talking about smoking their sausage. And then China gets out her sausage. It's like this enormous.
It's way bigger.
like
it's
Shawn and Hunter.
It's a full dried salami.
Yeah.
The one that I always think about is the strip poker segment.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we got all three of them just sitting in the ring, like the headbangers are trying to come in to start their match, and they're just getting rid of them. And China's just literally beating the pants off both of them in poker.
Yeah. I always I think another one too that was like, I think this was the one where it was just like really put DX over the top, is the State of the Union address.
Yes.
Oh God, yes.
Because I mean, at that point it was like, okay, you gotta, you know, there's some of the shit you guys can't be saying or doing on TV. And then for them to come out and the way they covered that, and I mean, it could have been USA Network could have said, "Oh hell no, like you're not going to air that," but in actuality, USA Network loved it.
Yeah.
So,
and I just love how natural they were about it too.
Yes.
You know, especially there's an uncensored version of that video floating out there where you can hear it. the actual words and stuff like that. And just the way that Triple H and Shawn play off each other, like they're not coming off as actors reading something off of a script, which they had probably come up with this beforehand, but they just played it so naturally. Their comedic timing and it is just so perfect.
Yeah.
Such a great segment. Great segment.
In which honestly, I think that's their comedic timing with each other was one of the reasons DX works so well in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. I mean, just the you think about the backstage and everything, and then, I mean, that was pretty much like what they were putting out in front of everybody was really them just messing around and, on the road when you think about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I think that's when wrestling or anything in general truly works when it's its authentic self, and that's exactly what Degeneration X was. It's a bunch of guys just, who were hard workers, who were best friends, and, love talking about their cocks. I mean, come on, just saying.
We all do.
I mean,
DX, they were just the perfect example of what I feel like every young man goes through at some point. There's a phase where, we're all like that. And I think that there's also, something to be said about, Stone Cold Steve Austin gets a lot of credit for having this character that everybody loved because, he was able to, flip off his boss and beat up his boss and blah, blah, blah. But DX were already doing that. We were at a point where, everybody didn't know that Vince McMahon was the owner, but, Shawn and Hunter, they're giving Vince McMahon that crap every single week. And then on top of that, they're doing the same thing to the commissioner, Sergeant Slaughter. They were the pioneers even in WWE of giving your boss shit.
Yeah, and I mean that was Sergeant Slaughter in the early formation of DX was very pivotal because I mean
agree.
just the back and forth there. And I'll never forget when they put on the helmets with the wipers.
Yep.
It's just like, oh my God, it's Sarge being Sarge, man. But the early promos, the early formations of DX, I mean, it's the groundwork for what laid for one of the greatest factions of all time. And they had so many moments throughout the years, and we're going to talk about those here tonight. But while we're talking about the first incarnation of DX, there's one more member I think we still got to mention, even though he was there for a cup of coffee. But you got to also mention that Rick Rude was actually a part of the very first DX, kind of as the I don't want to say bodyguard per se, but just kind of what they called him as like a benefactor or something like that.
He was their insurance policy.
Insurance policy. That is what it was. Yeah. And I mean, it was interesting when you think about it. Like Rick Rude, I would have loved to have seen like Rick Rude be with DX longer, and because I think it would have been cool. Because I mean, Rick Rude's another guy, man. If you look at like the stuff he did in ECW and like the way he was talking in promos and stuff, dude, he would have fit right in with like that type of humor.
Really, I mean, if you think about it, even if you think about Rick Rude in WWE as a wrestler, I mean, he was out there gyrating his hips and bringing women into the ring and making out with them. He was riding that line of like sexual stuff, at a time where they weren't doing that. So, I mean, you could just imagine if Rick Rude were, let off the leash and say, hey, just go for it. I would have loved to have seen him with them longer too, especially because when he went to ECW, he had a couple more matches, didn't he?
No, he didn't. He
didn't. Okay.
No, he didn't have any matches, but he did color commentary and he was involved in a storyline with the franchise.
Right.
But yeah.
He
was going to try to make a comeback, but unfortunately he passed away. No, he was going to try to make a comeback, which I would have loved to see that because I think Rick Rude's one of the greats of all time.
Yeah.
Period. But yeah, Rick Rude was a part of the first incarnation of Degeneration X. And I think like the first real kind of big moment for DX was kind of the build to Hell in a Cell. The first Hell in a Cell was Shawn against The Undertaker. And remember, it was like, Hell in a Cell was kind of designed essentially to keep people out and keep them in, if you think about it. And once again, that's another huge pivotal moment because I mean that's a match that's still going to this day. A match back then that was of great importance. And also look what happened in that Hell in a Cell where Kane makes his debut. Another pivotal moment in the Attitude Era. And DX was right there, right front and center.
That match is kind of a perfect storm of everything that I love in WWE because you know, you have DX, you know, Shawn's my all-time favorite, Undertaker's Undertaker's Mount Rushmore for me, but not only that, that Kane and Undertaker storyline is my all-time favorite wrestling storyline. So that got kicked off there too. So I love that match and everything that happened after it that came from it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that was you couldn't ask for a better first interpretation of a match than that first Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it too, that Hell in a Cell was so iconic that Mick Foley felt so inclined that somehow he had to top it by throwing his damn body off the top of the cell. So, but man, oh man, that's a story for another time. But they just DX was a part of some of the key moments in the Attitude Era. I mean, so much, and we got to talk about one of them, of course, and that's yes, Irish, the Montreal screw job. You know, going into that with we all know Brett and Sean going back and forth, but I mean, still, like I think if memory serves me correctly from what I've seen in like footage in the past, like Hunter and Sean, or Hunter specifically, was like, you know, if he doesn't want to go into business, we're going to go into business for him, essentially. As far as, you know, being like, we got to get the belt off of him one way or the other. So, and I mean, we've talked about that before. There's so many people that's talked about the Montreal screw job, but I mean, you have to mention it in the history of Degeneration X because once again, like this is another huge moment. Remember the night after where they act like they're going to bring Bret Hart out, and it's the dwarf in the Bret Hart mask, you know. Another like DX moment, a DX like taking something and making it funny, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you and I would probably go back and forth on this all day, XOJ, but Brett screwed them. Brett screwed Brett, damn it.
No comment. I'm taking the high road.
Do I need to mediate here?
How about the moment? How about the DX Christmas?
Yes.
How about
yes.
that one?
That's like we got to mention that. We'll never forget the where they're inside the ring and they're going to give like their Christmas gift and the Merry Xmas right on their asses. Oh man.
See, this is wonderful because some of this stuff I know and some of it I don't know.
So my favorite moment in DX, and this is like, it's probably something that nobody even remembers because it wasn't like a segment or anything like that. It was just this singular couple seconds in time that happened during a DX segment. And I have a GIF that I keep on my phone of it because I still look back at it. And it's so, you know, I was already a Shawn Michaels fan. You know, Shawn was my guy even before he was in DX. You know, I started watching like a little bit before the Boyhood Dream storyline, and he was immediately my guy. So, but for me, peak Shawn Michaels is DX Shawn Michaels. Just these couple years here where he is, you know, this just smarmy, in your face, degenerate heel. Like I love this era of Shawn and the stuff that he put out. As far as his work goes. And there's this one match where I think the match is over and he's leaving. And there is a fan who's jaw-jacking with him. And as he's going up the arena, the fan's in like the front row. And he goes up to him and he points out the guy. And then he mimics that the man performs fellatio. Okay? And he's pointing at the guy. He's doing all the hand motions and all that, you know. And this guy, this fan he is so into it. And he is so fucking angry. Like it's real to him right then and there. He is trying to get over the rail to get at Shawn Michaels, and there are other people that are having to hold him back. And I just love that moment because it just shows how good Shawn was at that moment at pissing people off. If he wanted to, he could piss off half the crowd and then have the other half love him because he was hilarious. And it is peak Shawn Michaels for me.
There's no doubt about it. I'll never forget we were talking to Montreal Screwjob. Remember at the beginning where he puts down the Canadian flag and pretty much dry humps it in the ring?
Yeah. Or when he came out during one of Brett's matches and just takes the flag and sticks it up his nose.
Just that stupid 8th grade humor, man.
Yep. Stupid, like, I should not be laughing at this, but like, I can't stop.
So you really couldn't. I mean, DX B-roll was so hot that this was unheard of, at least back in these days. DX got their own pay-per-view, for God's sakes. There was In Your House, Degeneration X in December of '97. So
well, that I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been a pay-per-view just named after a group or a superstar before, or like literally just
no, it really isn't.
You know. So
what is up, Husky? How you doing, brother? Yeah, no, I don't think there really has either. I mean, the only others I can think of is NWO had their own sold out like a little bit later, and then The Rock had the Rock Bottom show. So, but outside that, no. But I mean,
Bad Bunny had Backlash, right? I mean, that was basically his show.
yeah, pretty much. But I would say more so that was Puerto Rico's show. Let's say that. But that DX pay-per-view though, like, because you have, I mean, you had other matches on it, but like your big two was with Shawn and Triple H. You had Shawn defending the WWF title against Ken Shamrock, and then Triple H in a boot camp match with Sergeant Slaughter. It kind of like, and finally that feud coming to an end there. Which I actually like that match. Like, go back and watch that match. It's even though Sarge is up there in age at this point, it's still a pretty fun matchup to watch.
Yeah. And I mean, really, if you think about it, Sarge was only 5 years removed, I think, from actually being like an active competitor. It hadn't been that long. But not only that, like, it's funny to think about it now because how we think of like age has changed so much in this time. But if you look at Sarge then, he's younger than Triple H now. And that is fucking hard to believe when you look at both of them and how they look. Like Sarge looks like an old middle-aged man. You know what I mean? Compared to like Triple H still looks pretty damn good for being a man in his mid-50s.
Hunter looks like a corporate fucking Viking. That's what he looks like. It's just like, oh man. But yeah, God bless him. But yeah, so
what about since we're talking about the European title, how about when Shawn dropped the European title to Triple H?
Yeah, because Sergeant Slaughter is commissioner, thinking he's finally going to get DX, so he puts him in a one-on-one matchup for the European title. And, people talk about the finger poke of doom. I mean, this was that before the finger poke of doom. I'll never forget Hunter's like stupid jogging.
He just ran the ropes for 5 minutes or so.
And that was just another like big like FU to the whole Hart family because he had won that from British Bulldog.
Yeah. At a UK show too.
Yeah.
What was that? One night only, I think. Yeah. In '97. Yeah. So.
See, I watched a documentary today. I'm smart.
You did your homework. I'm still proud of you. But DX, that first run was dominant, but unfortunately, it would have to come to the end sooner than later because Shawn Michaels having that career-ending injury, essentially, at the Royal Rumble, where he gets backdropped over onto the casket in that casket match with The Undertaker. So it's kind of interesting because if you look back at the time, they were already thinking about expanding because they were already looking at the New Age Outlaws. They were already looking at Billy Gunn and Road Dogg. As a matter of fact, I think like kind of the reason that Billy and the Road Dogg got put together is kind of because of Shawn and Hunter suggesting it, I believe, if you look back in the history. And man, oh man, boy, were they right on that one. so interesting to think about that too in hindsight, because you have these two wrestlers who are just like on mid card. Let's call a spade a spade. They were mid card at best, and man, oh man, the chemistry when you put those two guys together, oh, it was just money. Especially give him Road Dogg a mic. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
let's just do this. But I'll never forget going into the No Way Out pay-per-view of '98. It was essentially going to be Hunter and Sean teaming up with the Outlaws, and they were going to go up against the team of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Owen Hart, Cactus Jack, and Terry Funk. But Sean's injury, like, prevented him from being able to be a participant in that matchup. But he would be able to suck it up and like go to WrestleMania and wrestle Stone Cold. And again, we got to talk about that, man, because at this point in time frame, the two biggest entities in the Attitude Era, it's Stone Cold and it's Degeneration X. And at your biggest show of the year, they're colliding in the main event. Like, you couldn't ask for it to be any more perfect, essentially. Now it
Or
is
you could if you added Mike Tyson into it.
Boom, there you go. And boom goes the dynamite, which they did. I mean, still that WrestleMania 14 main event. I mean, I don't know why. I feel like it is one of the most overlooked main events because of number one, the match is great itself. Number two, it is one of the most iconic moments in WWF history. Hell, in all of professional wrestling history. Because here you have, it's like a passing of the guard. That is literally where the Stone Cold era truly begins, because he finally climbs the top of the mountain and wins the WWF title. Of course, going into this too, Sean, there was that, is Sean going to work? Is Sean going to drop it to Austin? And I don't think it was so much Sean had a problem with Austin. I think Sean was just pissed off at the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's even stories of, The Undertaker being in the back wrapping his fists because he was ready to go out there and take care of Sean if Sean didn't do business. But in the end, Sean did do business, unlike Bret Hart.
Oh, digging me again. All right. It's all good.
Shots
Same.
fired. I'm trying to get over that visual of like Undertaker taping his fist. Like, I'm sorry.
It's just
but
like,
I do think that, like you said, that match is overlooked. I think for a couple reasons. Like you said, it was really the kickoff of the Stone Cold era, and Stone Cold's popularity and everything that he did after just overshadows that match so much. But not only that, like you said, Sean was not in a good place at that time, and it's been made very public. And I think, knowing where Sean was in his head at that time and everything surrounding that match with the back injury and him retiring for a couple years and all that also overshadows how good of a match that was.
Yeah.
Even more so when you think about how much pain Sean was in at the time, that he could barely even walk, in the back and all that. And he still went out there and he took some bumps that, now knowing how bad his back was at the time, going back and watching that, man, there's the one where he gets shot into the turnbuckle and he turns upside down and he hits so hard on his back. Like it makes me cringe every time I watch it back now, just knowing that, the injury that he was dealing with at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like, you can say what you will about Shawn Michaels, but like, you cannot discount that. I mean, there's a reason they call him Mr. WrestleMania. And I mean, that is one of the all-time great performances, because I mean, he didn't have to do it, but I mean, he did it, and he did what was needed to be done, especially to get Stone Cold to that next level. But I mean, so now you have Shawn pretty much retired at this point, and it's like, okay, here's Hunter. Now what? Where do we go with DX? But the night after WrestleMania, man, in my opinion, that night after WrestleMania 14 is kind of the very first real like Monday Night Raw, like night after Mania, where like significant stuff starts to happen, and it's like, okay, you got to tune in and see what the hell's going on, because right off the bat, B-roll, we get the second formation of Degeneration X, because I mean, there's that moment in the show where Hunter comes out, pretty much it's like, okay, Sean's out, he's done, but you got to stick to your family, stick to your blood. for your new and lo and behold, who shows up? X-Pac is back in the WWF. I mean, it just goes to show you. Oh yeah, you got him back there in the picture. I see it now.
I see it.
I see it. But I mean, and that was a big moment too, because Sean Waltman coming off getting fired from WCW, and now he's like back in the WWF. Was huge. And then at the end of the night, they come out and assist Billy Gunn and the Road Dogg, and thus Billy Gunn and the Road Dogg. So now you got this twosomes, now this amazing foursome. And as great as DX's first origins are, I mean, this is my favorite interpretation of DX was the second one, honestly. I'm the guy that I really like the sequel more than the original. Not that the original one's bad, but I mean, the sequel was just really fucking good.
Yeah, I mean, the original is my favorite just because of obviously Sean being involved, but not only that, just because of I think what it meant to me as a wrestling fan. Period. At that time, being the age that I was at that time in that time period, that original group is so pivotal to my wrestling fandom. But I absolutely loved the second version as well. They were just as fun and just as entertaining as the original version. And then not only that, you had 5 assholes to deal with to entertain you instead of just 2.
Yep.
So
because you still got China in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think too, what was interesting, if you look at the dynamic there, I mean, really the first interpretation of DX, they were kind of tweeners, really, like they were heels, but the crowd just loved to love them.
Mm-hmm.
But really the second interpretation, it's like they pretty much go full babyface, essentially.
Yeah. I don't think they started out that way. I think they were still thinking like, oh, we're heels. I think where it really turned was the invasion.
Yes.
Once the invasion happened, it was like, yeah, okay, these guys they're full-blown faces. There's no way that we can keep these guys heels.
Which we got to talk about that. That is another one of the most pivotal moments, not only in DX history, but in all of wrestling history. And I know you've seen it, B-roll, where Degeneration X pulls up to WCW and pretty much tried to let their people go, as they say. I'll never forget that. With all of them in the Jeep, going out there. And I'll never forget like the little twigs on Billy Gunn's and Road Dogg's helmet.
I just recently saw something. I don't know if it was on TikTok or another social media thing. Oh, maybe. Oh, it was the. I don't know if you guys are watching that WWE Most Wanted Treasure show.
Mm-hmm.
So last week they did the DX Jeep,
yeah,
and the guy's father had photos of just Billy Gunn like out. He just walked into the woods and started like pulling trees off so he could put it, like it wasn't even something they planned. He was just like, oh, I'm gonna go and do this and just put him in the helmet. And it's just like that kind of stuff is what is so hilarious about him. That half of the shit wasn't even. They were just acting like idiots, like all of us do.
The little nuances is really what like just puts it over the top, man.
Mm-hmm.
And then just the cool thing was with this is Raw was it in Virginia? I think this is where this happened.
Yeah.
Because Nitro was working like was doing.
It was like 3 hours away or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So just them showing up in the Jeep, man, and just the banging on the door, and then just like they were closing the door. It's funny too because you've seen in interviews and like Nash talked about how like they show us like, oh, you should have let him in. It would have like we could have made this even more epic. Could you imagine if they did let them in and they like did some like co-produced like promo or something that you could have aired on WCW? It would never fucking happen, but man, fans' minds would have just exploded at that point.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I love about when I look back at DX and the humor of DX, because I regularly call myself I'm a habitual line stepper. When it comes to like humor, like I'm the type that I'm going to go up to the line until somebody tells me that I'm going over it. You know what I mean? And that was always DX too. Like even the thing that you just said, XOJ, like Triple H going out and saying, "Let my people go." Like, that is like, it's borderline offensive. You know what I mean? And that's like he just had the balls to go up and say something like that. And it's like, oh, I don't know if I should be laughing at it, but I'm laughing at it. And that's like my kind of humor. Like, I do the same thing. So the fact that was just their humor was, we're gonna go right up to that line. We're gonna see how far we can push it until somebody tells us we can't.
Yeah. Really, like that, and like you say, man, that moment was so pivotal, and like them really, where it was like the fans were just like, okay, I can't hate these guys. How can you hate these guys?
Yeah, especially because you're at a WCW show with fans who were there to see WCW, and then they're like, yeah, well, we'd rather talk with these guys from the other company, like, you know.
Yeah, it's like when they were talking to the fans, and it's like, here to see the WCW. And then, like, it was like, wait a minute, how much did you pay for your tickets? Like, oh, they were free. WCW sucks. Oh, man. But that summer of '98, though, was so magical for DX. Like, just with all the different moments and the promos. But the biggest thing I think you have to take away from that, though, is another great rivalry. You got to talk about DX against the Nation. And man, oh man, what a great rivalry that was! Because here you have the Nation.
Oh boy, again, we're talking about getting offensive. We're talking about stepping to the line. This feud right here is it.
Yeah, Hambone, let me ask you this. I think I already know the answer, but there's no way they could pull off this shit nowadays, right?
Oh, good God, no.
Yeah. Good God, no.
No, you couldn't even get close to it, much less do it. No, you couldn't even suggest it.
I mean, X-Pac dressed as Mark Henry, and I'm just going to leave that there as that.
I don't need to say anything more than that.
But that promo was so hilarious where DX impersonated the Nation.
My favorite part of that promo is Road Dogg as D'Lo Brown. Just constantly popping in and going, the brother smacks himself. He smacks himself. Like, every time somebody else does something, he had to jump in as D'Lo and do that.
And he's always doing the head shake and stuff. Yeah. Oh, my God. Oh, man. And then also, too, they brought in, remember, Jason Sensation, who did spot on Owen Hart impersonation, man. Oh my gosh.
Yep. I tried to be a nice guy, but I just couldn't grow my damn beard in.
Oh man. But that promo alone, my gosh. And yeah, there is definitely some stuff there that's offensive, especially today. But I mean, if you put it in the context of, I don't think it was necessarily intended for that. It was just intended to rip on the Nation, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, we can really say this about any form of entertainment. You can't take entertainment from the past and, compare it to today's standards, because everything always changes, and, what is acceptable and not acceptable is always going to progress. So, yeah, you couldn't do anything like that now, but I mean, then it was hilarious. It's still funny to me when I watch it now, even though I know that it is offensive and too far. But goddamn, it's funny.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, I agree, man. I mean, you just got to put it in context, folks.
Yeah.
But that feud with the Nation, like, of course, at the height of it, it was all really about The Rock against Triple H.
Yep.
and those guys, that's another one of the greatest rivalries in all pro wrestling. I mean, they worked so well together. I mean,
I think that during that feud, Triple H and The Rock had one of the best and also underrated ladder matches of all time.
Yeah, SummerSlam '98. Yeah, absolutely. And you are 110% right as far as like completely underrated. Like that is a hell of a ladder match and a great moment too, and a great show. SummerSlam '98. If people ask me, like, show them a show that like pretty much describes the Attitude Era, that's the show I go to.
Yeah.
SummerSlam '98.
Yeah. You got that. Yeah. You got X-Pac and Jeff Jarrett and hair versus hair match. You got Undertaker and Stone Cold. I mean, yeah, that pay-per-view is a perfect example.
Mankind and Kane,
Yeah.
or really Mankind. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. It was a great show, man. Kind of among those realms, I'm just going to randomly throw this out there, but it makes me think of like you talked about obscure DX moments. I have an obscure DX moment that I really enjoyed from them. Do you remember back in the day where after the big pay-per-views, WWF would go on the Home Shopping Network right immediately after in a post show, and it was like they we were selling merch and whatnot, but also they did backstage promos. And I'll never forget the one with DX that they did, and it was just like it was kind of among the lines of the presidential address, only they were just like coming up with different ways to refer to their dicks, essentially. Fucking hilarious. Another hidden gem out there, if you will. But yeah, the summer of '98, man, that was DX was like, if you did like, here's the thing, if you was to do like, everybody wants to talk about pillars nowadays. If you did like 4 pillars of the Attitude Era, I'd say you got Stone Cold, DX, Undertaker, Kane, I would say, and then like Rock and Mankind. Can we just put them together or something? But I mean,
I think you have to put Mick Foley in there, especially with the Cage match and what that meant to the Attitude Era. But yeah, I mean, I make the argument all the time that I truly believe that DX was the beginning of the Attitude Era. And I don't mean like the second version, I mean the first version. That was where the Attitude Era really started, and we were, all right, well, let's see if we can push this line a little bit and see if we can make things a bit more adult, and if we can, then we'll, move on with other people. So I don't believe, a lot of people make the argument that Stone Cold started it, but I truly believe that DX was the beginning of the Attitude Era.
I think the best way to describe that would be this. I think that Stone Cold moment at WrestleMania 13 planted the seeds. And I think when Shawn and Triple H got together with and formed DX, that's like really when you start to see like what this could be. And it's like now like the seeds are turning into flowers that are starting to sprout, if you will.
Sure. Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah, like this. There you go. But that summer of '98 was magical and special, man. I'll never forget too. You remember they put out the DX home video of like the behind the scenes with them, and it was like all uncensored.
Oh my god, I love. There's that whole part of them just walking the streets of New York City and just going up to random people. It is one of my favorite pieces of wrestling television. Nobody ever talks about it. It's not something that like a lot of people remember, but them just going up to people on New York City streets and just riffing with them. And oh my god, and they're all just so damn funny. And they're all just being themselves. It's not scripted shit. It's just stuff they went out and just started talking to people, and it's hilarious content.
Yeah, it really is. And like remember,
I always have to find this.
Yeah, you got to find that B-roll.
It's
just
great.
DX and New York City streets.
And then I'll never forget too, especially as an adolescent, I really appreciate this. Like how many times like, we get the ladies in the crowd to show the tatas, and then you have the DX across the top there, man.
Yep.
Good times.
Yep. It was amazing. It was amazing what Triple H could get a woman to do at that time.
Now, I think where like this version of DX starts to kind of like come down, it's like towards the end of '98 with once Hunter had that injury, it put him out for a little while. I mean, they were still going strong, but it wasn't quite the same,
Yeah.
And then Hunter gets back from injury, I think they're around December. And at this time, you have another faction that's going strong, the Corporation. So then you have that rivalry with the DX against the Corporation, which is fine and all, but it's just, I don't know, it doesn't, to me, just wasn't quite the same as like the rivalry they have with the Nation of Domination.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially, with Triple H defecting, because Triple H was the strongest member of the group, I guess, when it came to like, in my opinion, when it came to talking and promos and things like that. And he really did lead the group, and taking him away from it really did kind of kill DX. I think, you know, they've all talked about, other than Triple H, because I guess it was Triple H's idea for him to leave, because he wanted to become a main eventer, you know. But, you know, I think Road Dogg, I've listened to his podcast. He's talked about it a lot, about how they all were like, man, we're still so hot. Like, there's still so much that we could do. There's still so much merchandise we could sell as DX. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why they kept it going after, but it just was not the same. Especially because you had kind of already broken up the group a little bit, you know, with Triple H being out. You know, X-Pac started to go off with Kane, and that story and that tag team was so popular and so big that you had kind of already taken the group and splintered it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like it all really started. You think about it with China, with the first one really that
China leaving it,
and joined the corporation, and then I'll never forget like WrestleMania 15. You hear it's Kane against Hunter, and then like China, it's like she's come back to home to DX. You think, and then Hunter pretty much turns on X-Pac in that matchup with Shane McMahon for the European title, and then like now he's part of the corporation, you know, and it's like you say, it just like. You still have DX is still together, but it's just without Hunter, it's just not the same. You can't.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
I'm just saying, there's an alternate universe out there where the big red machine becomes the big green machine, and he joins DX officially.
Well, the thing is, us fans, we wanted that so badly. I mean, I'm sure Hambone's with me here on this one. I know you were doing like a costume change in WrestleMania 2000, make it his gear green, right?
Yeah. I mean, so after Sean left, for whatever reason, I really connected with Sean Waltman and X-Pac. Yeah, I know there was a point where he had X-Pac heat. I think we're all past that. We recognize how great he was. But I really connected with him with Sean being gone. And you know, one of the pivotal moments again, and it's I feel it's almost part of DX lore as well, was, you know, when he was with Kane, and he's trying to show Kane that, you know, Kane can trust people, and, you know, he is a friend. He wants to be a friend to him, and he can be more human. And, you know, Kane gets the voice thing, and his first two words we ever hear from him is "suck it." And it's just, the fucking crowd explodes. Such a great moment.
It really is. Oh my God, that was such a great moment. And that was, man, you talk about like two random guys put together and having a hell of a tag team. Kane and X-Pac were awesome as a tag team.
Should not have worked. But really, when you think about it, you know, Kane just got thrown with so many different partners, so many different types of people and gimmicks, and he made them all work. I mean, he was great with X-Pac. He was great with RVD. You know, he just got thrown with anybody into a tag team, and for whatever reason, it worked, even though the character of Kane should never work with another character other than maybe Undertaker, you know?
I agree. Yep. I mean, and you talk about characters who work together great and stuff. At this time frame, too, they finally decide, you know, like, all right, let's give Billy Gunn the big push, and thus Billy Gunn now is known only as Mr. Ass, because he's an ass man, which is a great theme, though, I will say.
It is.
So, yeah, remember at this time frame, too, they were like pretty much attach a rocket to Billy Gunn, and he wins King of the Ring in 99. Now it's like, okay, Billy Gunn's going to become a main event player. Didn't work that way. It's out for him, unfortunately. But I remember at the time, though, I was like a huge Mr. Ass fan. I was kind of excited to see where he was going to go with that.
Yeah.
What are you talking about over there?
The sentence that came out of your mouth.
Huge Mr. Ass fan?
Mr. Ass fan.
Because I'm an ass man.
I really don't know. I don't know why Billy Gunn didn't work. Oh my God! Excuse me, guys.
You're fine.
But
it's interesting, though. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, he had everything. He looked great. You know, I think that Billy Gunn is actually underrated on the mic. You know, I think that you know, people, when you put him against, you know, his tag team partner, I think that's why people like act like he wasn't a good promo. But he, you know, especially when you go back to the original New Age Outlaws, even before DX, when both of them were getting a lot of mic time, Billy was hilarious, and he had great comedic timing himself. He had a great like sarcastic wit. He could go back and forth with Road Dogg, but I feel like his mic skills get overlooked just because he was paired up with Road Dogg, who was a better talker. But
Yeah.
I don't know why Billy Gunn didn't work as a main eventer, because I feel like he had everything that you needed.
Yeah, I feel like that as well. And I feel like too, like, let me ask you this, Hambone. Do you think the Rock promo is what really killed Billy Gunn though?
I
Where
probably.
where he comes
Yeah.
out like Billy, it's Billy or Bob.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what your name is. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
it's when you do those kind of promos, like you're really walking a line, of part of you, yeah, you should be like, making fun of your opponent, I guess, that's going to be funny and entertaining and things like that. But there is a point where you go too far with it and you almost make it like, well, I'm not even afraid of this person, that there's no threat to me. I feel like John Cena kind of did that recently with Austin Theory, and I feel like that was what happened in that promo with The Rock. While that promo was hilarious from him, he kind of buried Billy and made him not even look like a threat. And
That's a good. Yeah,
yeah,
I honestly, I feel like that's kind of what took Billy Gunn's momentum away from him.
yeah, yeah.
Because shortly thereafter he would be reunited again with the Road Dogg, and then now at this point Triple H has climbed to the top. He's become the WWF champion. The corporation is no more. Austin is pretty much, he's still wrestling, but he's hurt at this point. Now Austin's gonna essentially be taken out at the Survivor Series that year, but now we get the reformation of Degeneration X yet again. But this interpretation of DX, granted, yes, it's X-Pac, it's the Outlaws, it's Hunter, and I think China was there for a little bit until she kind of went off and was doing her own thing. But I don't know. This one, it just felt like, okay, it kind of felt like, okay, Hunter, I'm the champ. X-Pac, Outlaws, you're my lackeys. You take care of my shit, if you will. It was just like, because it's all about me and the world title, essentially is what it felt like. Whereas before it was all about the group, I think.
Yeah. I feel like this version was more about the McMahon Helmsley era.
Yes.
That's what this version was. It wasn't DX and the DX that we loved anymore. The group itself was not the focus or the priority. I think we kind of talked about it earlier about how, you said by the end of 98, DX was kind of done. And I think it may have been, again, Road Dogg, because, he does have a podcast, and he made the point that, DX, the first two versions of it, really you only had about 2.5 years of like really good DX content. And in those 2 years, I mean, just think of everything that we just talked about, and we didn't even hit all the moments. They put out so many like iconic, hilarious moments in only a span of 2.5 years, at a time where WWE was only putting out, 2 hours of programming a week instead of 5. You know what I mean? So it's kind of crazy when you think about it that way, how many moments they made in such a short term, because as of this version of DX, I think afterwards it's just not what it was anymore, and it wasn't that entertaining any longer.
Yeah, because they're not doing like the whole spiel, the fun. It's like, no, we're more serious. We're just like a group here for Hunter, and What's up, Derek? How you doing, brother? Hope you're having a good night, my friend. Appreciate you joining us here tonight. But yeah, man, it's just the Helmsley, McMahon Helmsley era just fell flat, I thought. And it was just weird too, because then you got Tori joins the group, because Tori's now the girlfriend of X-Pac, and then you have
that he stole from Kane.
He stole her from Kane. Yeah. And then you have kind of Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 2000 gets reunited with Stephanie, even though I don't know, this was just a weird time of booking. I felt like it was just like flip-flopping around, and just I don't know, it was just a weird time.
Yeah.
But pretty much like after Triple H loses the WWF title there to The Rock, and they kind of trade it back and forth there. And then just after that, it's more he's kind of becoming the cerebral assassin, you know. And then really you have DX is still kind of around. I think Billy Gunn at some point got injured at this point, so then it's just X-Pac and Road Dogg as a tag team for a little while, which was okay, but it's just not the same. And I mean that's pretty much it. Just like that, that's kind of the end of this era of DX. Is just kind of just all of them go their separate ways essentially.
Yeah,
when you think about
I think that this era of DX kind of just shows where WWE was at the point. You know, I make a big point all the time talking about wrestling companies being in transition periods. And that's what I feel like the WWE was at this time. They were still really hot, you know, they were still really popular and all that, but the things that had made them extremely popular, you know, The Rock, Stone Cold, DX, those had kind of peaked at this point. And now we're getting past that. Now we're trying to figure out, well, how are we keeping that momentum? Who else are we going to get to be at the top like those guys? And they hadn't really figured that out yet. They were in a transition period, and DX was a perfect example of that.
Yeah, it really was. And like you kind of got Road Dogg going off and still doing his spiel, and then like he ends up forming a tag team with a very young Ron Killings, aka K Quick back in the day. Yep. Get rowdy. Yeah, but they have that going on. Then you have X-Pac finally kind of get his own faction with a little X Factor.
We go from one of the best themes ever in DX, and X-Pac's theme is a banger too, to X Factor being one of the worst themes ever made.
Fucking Uncle Cracker, man. I could never stand Uncle Cracker.
Awful.
Yeah, just say it.
You're associated with Kid Rock. I mean,
that's all you need to know.
It's all you need to know.
Yeah. So pretty much, but at this time frame too, you've got Hunter is just like the DX stuff's behind him, and now he's like cerebral assassin. Now he's like true top tier main event player essentially.
And we got the one Billy Gunn.
Billy Gunn, yes. Man, oh man, the one I wanted to like the one Billy Gunn so bad, and I
did too.
I liked him, but I just like I knew it was like doomed from the get go. You know,
yeah.
They changed up his song, man. Now he's not Mr. S. Now, which I kind of like the one Billy Gunn's theme music. I'm just saying, I'll throw that out there. Because what was it?
And he cut his hair too, and it's like, no, this isn't the Billy Gunn that like I love.
Which you still kind of see little things of DX, because at this time frame Billy Gunn's kind of like teaming up with China, you know, and they're kind of have their friendship and whatever. But yeah, it's just at this point it's it is what it is. So yeah, Billy Gunn the one.
Mm-hmm.
I got it all. Burr, burr. Hit the saxophone, baby. God, great fucking theme. Underrated themes, the one Billy Gunn. I'm just throwing that out there.
You gonna throw that at us for a tune-in Tuesday?
Oh man, I should. Oh shit, I've already recorded the one for this week, but that may come up in next week. It's a good fucking theme.
Kayfabe, brother. You can't say you recorded stuff early. Kayfabe. Got the curtain call all over again.
Yeesh.
I'll not tell if you don't tell. So it's kind of interesting how like we got to talk, you know, pretty much you think this is it. That was it, the end of DX. But, just like any band, they got the band back together in 2006. Because at this point, Shawn Michaels has already returned. And this is a completely different Shawn Michaels.
Before we talk about that, though, let's talk about, because this, how old was I at this point? So 2002, Shawn Michaels comes back from his injury, right? I'm 15 years old at this point. At this point, I'm smart to the business, right? I know what's going on, right? You know, I'm a fucking mark, and I know what's going on at this point. But my favorite comes back. Shawn Michaels comes back, and they do the segment where Triple H comes out and they
that's
both come
right.
out in the DX stuff
Shirts,
and the
yeah.
DX music. I remember I would, and again, like I said, I'm smart to the business at this point, but it got me so legitimately excited. I was so happy to see Sean come back and see them two pop up and come out as DX. I popped up off of my bed at the time. I'm watching it, and I ran to my fucking closet. I threw my DX shirt on. The music's playing. I'm sitting there sucking it with both of them, and then the turn comes.
Now that's
And-
that's a worse sentence than I said earlier. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
And then the turn. And even though, like I said, I'm smart to the business at that point, my 15-year-old little heart broke. And I was so upset and angry at Triple H.
I mean, how appropriate though that when Sean comes back, his first match is against Hunter, and I think at that point too, Sean didn't even know. You know, he just wanted to have a match, didn't know it would turn into what it did.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was. Oh man, that no holds barred match at SummerSlam of 2002. That's one of the all-time great matches. That match is so freaking good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy to think about that. Like Sean was just like, oh, I'm going to come back for a match. And then it's like, oh, okay, I'll come back for a couple matches. And then we got him for another decade. It went from like 1, 2, couple matches to like, we got him just for a full 10 friggin' years.
And the thing of it is, and once again, like say what you will about Sean's attitude, but like before this time frame, dude, not only is he back, he's like he's putting on the best performances of his career.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's already has a Hall of Fame worthy career. And it's like, holy shit. Like how just mind boggling when you think about it.
Yeah. And when we talk about like Sean's attitude and stuff like that, like I always let that stuff go, not just because I'm a Shawn Michaels fan, but I am in real life just a big believer that, people can and should be allowed the opportunity to change at any point for any reason. And I think Sean proved and has proven since then that he has been a changed person. So I don't harp on that shit, too much. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason that, he can go away for 4 years and come back and just put on just bangers for 10 years. It's ridiculous.
It's insane. Like the Shawn Michaels is like a one and only. You'll never get another Shawn Michaels.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about that.
Specials, though.
Yeah. And we talk about before we get to that 2006 reunited of DX with DX getting reunited. I mean, they had a pretty intense rivalry there for like over a year with Triple H and Shawn, man. Just back and forth, and like every from matches to like those 3 Stages of Hell match to like a Hell in a Cell match to No Holds Barred and so much more, man. In between,
I really feel like that feud is what kind of sparked the Elimination Chamber too. It ended up being 6 guys in that, but really it came out of that feud between Shawn and Hunter.
Yeah, and if you look at Hunter at that time frame, so now they put the world title on him, and then he's just like going through the Raw roster left and right. So it's like, okay, but the way he's going through it though, it's not like he's getting clean victories, So the Elimination Chamber, another pivotal part of their rivalry as well. So. But it's crazy.
Well, the other things that I think is awesome about Shawn's comeback and that decade long too is if you think about it, other than he won that world heavyweight title in that Elimination Chamber, he only had it for a month, and then him and Triple H won the tag titles for a little bit. Other than that, he spent 10 years putting on banger matches and didn't hold the title.
That's a good.
And
point.
didn't have to.
He didn't need it.
He didn't need it.
He didn't need it. Wow. But yeah, it's interesting when you get to 06 here and you get to the Shawn and Hunter getting reunited because I mean at this point, Hunter's like the top heel in the company. He's been with Evolution. He's been dominant on the Raw brand for years, essentially going through every interpretation of like the Raw roster there is essentially at this point.
Yeah.
And now you have like Shawn's in this bitter feud with Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon pulling like out all stops, so much so that he brings Hunter in to,
he tags with God.
Yeah, he tagged with God. Like Sean tagged with God. Somehow Vince beat God.
You don't bring in a bigger star than God. You can't.
Right. But yeah, so you bring in like you know, but here you have now Hunter gets involved in the feud because Vince wants him to like go after Sean, and like Triple H at this point doesn't give a shit, whatever. All he's really cared about is getting his World Heavyweight Championship back because I mean that's all that matters to him at this point. And here's the crazy thing to think about all of this. Who is the hired heavies at the time for Vince McMahon to go after Shawn Michaels?
The Spirit Squad.
A group of male cheerleaders, the Spirit Squad. And the Spirit Squad essentially is what brought DX back together. Can we say that?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
It's just like, really? That's what did it? It wasn't like, all this other shit going on. It's like male cheerleaders forming a
And really,
faction
when you
together.
think about it too, like a feud with DX, it's the only thing the Spirit Squad did. They disappeared after.
Yeah.
They all got fired. They gave Kenny Dykstra a little run, but he didn't do anything. Dolph Ziggler's the only one that survived the whole thing and came back. But they were essentially there for a feud with DX and then never seen again. Never used again.
This is true. Very true. And like I'll never forget, so DX is back together and they're announced for I believe it was the Vengeance pay-per-view of 2006 to where it's going to be DX against the Spirit Squad in a 5-on-2 match. Just a ridiculous match, B-roll. Just
Yes.
But here's the thing about it though, Hambone, I think you'd agree with it. This match was perfectly designed for like DX, like the DX of old to come back to where we're getting back to more of what we loved and what we've been talking about with DX with the comedy routines and whatnot. And I mean, there was plenty of them in this matchup and this era.
Yeah, although I do think so. I didn't love this version of DX, but there were a couple moments that were, funny. But it was a very different humor. They're DX, but this isn't the sophomore. It is sophomoric, but not sexually suggestive anymore. At this point, you're just kind of doing, childish shit. And jokes. Yeah,
take the dick
very
jokes out.
PG version.
You've only got like maybe one or two dick jokes and then mostly part jokes.
Yeah.
That's awesome,
Yeah,
Derek.
and
You
they're
met Dolph Ziggler. That's so cool, man. Nice. Yeah, Dolph seems like a good guy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're even you get a sprinkle of dick jokes in there, but they're very, very subtle. They're not so in your face anymore as they were when the original version. It's kind of a tongue in cheek wink at the old fans, like, hey, you know what we mean here, but we're not gonna say it because we're PG now. So it was a very weird era of DX.
It really was.
Yeah.
I do like how they tried covering up with like Shawn, like with them admitting Shawn's a born again Christian, and like Triple H like covering Shawn's ears look this way when he got like some girls to flash him or something like that.
Yeah. I think the best thing that we got out of this era of DX was
say it.
You know where I'm going. You know where I'm going,
exactly where you're going.
The Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon promo.
Yes.
Yes. That is the best thing that came out of this era of DX.
Oh my God, that's a great question. How many of us got in trouble at school for the Yep. And Stone Cold Bird.
I mean, I'll say this: I wasn't even a wrestling fan, at the time, but everyone knew what this was.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's how that like transcends into pop culture. It's like you not even being a fan, and you still knew like this meant something. Essentially.
I mean, I think it's so crazy how big that was. Because I mean, you talk about like how certain people like Stone Cold transcended the industry and worked their way into mainstream, and you would see Stone Cold shirts everywhere, even if they didn't know what it meant and things like that. But I mean, shit, we're 25 years later. There are still people out there doing the crotch top who probably have no idea where it even came from, and it came directly from DX. And it's not even like a pop culture thing. It's almost just like a culture thing that it
Yeah.
worked itself into everything. And there are probably people doing it now who have no idea where it came from. We have no idea what the reference is. They just know that, this means suck it and we're going to do it,
It is really fascinating almost when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you that the McMahon promo where Hunter comes out as Vince and Sean is Shade and
Yeah.
it's the Hunter, and then they do the stand back routine. Oh my gosh! The other thing I was thinking of with this, we did get a pretty phenomenal shirt out of it too. Remember the Vince McMahon loves
Yeah.
cock
Yeah.
shirt?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which was a Rooster B-roll, just FYI.
Yes.
But it was hilarious, like how that started, because they were like just once again that bathroom humor or whatever, like joking with Vince McMahon and then fucking with his mic essentially, and he's got the mic turned up really loud, and then Vince McMahon's like got the epic Vince McMahon voice, like that's not funny, damn it, and he's like all high pitched and shit. Oh man. Then they spray painted.
Wasn't this the era where they dropped poop too on Big Show or something?
No, I think they dropped. It was feces on the Spirit Squad and the McMahons.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. They sure did. They did that. They spray painted the Titan Towers. They spray painted the WWE plane.
Mm-hmm.
Never forget that moment where like Vince McMahon's like goes in his limo and he goes to take off and it gets like ripped off the axle of the vehicle. Vince McMahon gets out of the limo and he's got that Vince McMahon like he's just so pissed off and infuriated. That was a great rivalry though, man. The McMahons against DX. That was really fun. Like
I want to know who pitched the Spirit Squad.
I
mean?
Yeah.
There's like, I feel about the Spirit Squad almost the same way that I feel about Chase U right now in NXT.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it, and I don't get why that works in wrestling and how that's supposed to evolve. And that's how I felt about the Spirit Squad too. Like, what are these guys supposed to do from here? When it comes to like pitching characters, you would always think that you would go, okay, well, this has to be able to evolve. How do you go from being a bunch of male cheerleaders? How does that evolve? How do you get years out of that?
Yeah, that gimmick's only gonna last for so long. But God bless, like all the Spirit Squad, they knew it was like an opportunity, and it's like they'll do whatever they
absolutely.
take. So, and I mean, arguably, you've got the one guy who like came out of that is one of the most underrated performers of all time in Dolph Ziggler.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dolph, the longevity of his career, what all he's been able to accomplish. I mean, it's still a damn shame he's never gotten a true like long world title reign, but it is what it is. But
I think one of the other weird things about this era of DX too is that, and you touched on it a little bit, XLJ, about how we're coming off of Evolution here, right? So we're getting a very, very different version of Triple H and Evolution. So then we go into reforming DX, and yet Triple H still looks like the Evolution version of Triple H. He's still got the mutton chops and the flat ironed hair and all of that. And it's very difficult to kind of separate those two versions of Triple H. And I think that's another reason why this version just felt a little off the entire time.
Yeah, because Triple H for so long had played such a serious like heel villain.
Right.
Like for us longtime fans, it was like a refresher because you got to think about it. Triple H hasn't really done that role at the time frame, if you think about it, in over almost 7 to 8 years.
Yeah.
If you think about it, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But it was still like it was what it was. I mean, it was still kind of hard to believe, even though Triple H had done that many, many years ago. And think of it this way too. Think of a fan who started watching in like 2001 or something. I mean, that's the only Triple H they truly know.
Right.
And then all of a sudden now it's like he's dick and fart jokes again. It's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But the rivalry with the McMahons was fun. a lot of different wrestlers involved with it as well. One of them you mentioned earlier, the Big Show, was involved with it as well. They had the handicap Hell in a Cell match at the Unforgiven 2006 show. But at this point, like, that kind of run its course for so long. And then it's interesting to see where DX's next feud would go into, as they would go up against Team Rated RKO, the Edge and Randy Orton. And I thought that was a decent rivalry. I don't think it was as epic as it could have been. And I think part of that's mainly just due to Triple H getting injured again, unfortunately. Because remember, they would feud there for like a couple months, and then they have the match at the New Year's Revolution, and then Triple H tears his quad again.
Yeah. We haven't talked about another one of the most influential members of Degeneration X, and that's Hornswoggle.
I knew you were going to say that. Yes, Hornswoggle.
This was so weird. So weird.
Yeah,
they were just like, what do we do with this guy now? Now that Finley's done, what do we do with this guy?
Okay, it's like, all right, he's Vince McMahon's illegitimate son. We can do that. Okay, now we're just saying he lied. He's not his illegitimate son. He's not a leprechaun, though. I know. Let's just put him with Hunter and Sean. They can make something out of this.
Yeah. That's funny, right? Throw a little guy with him. That'll be hilarious. They'll figure it out.
I think he was always referred to as the honorary mascot of Degeneration X. Poor Hornswoggle, man. I mean, and Hornswoggle, that's a guy that should get a lot more credit, I think.
Hey, that guy had a 10-year career in the biggest company in the world, which is ridiculous for a little person.
Yeah, if you think about it. I mean, you talk about longevity. 6 degrees of Hornswoggle. Yeah, we could do that. But
I mean, just to see the little guy just going around going.
Yeah, which was adorable too. I mean, stupid segments. Whoever forget the People's Court with all the little people on Raw they did with Hornswoggle and DX. Just ridiculous, over the top fun. And I mean, that's kind of what this version of DX was. And going back to Hunter's injury, though, and you got to put Sean over again, because remember that year's WrestleMania was supposed to be a rematch with Cena and Triple H, but obviously Triple H being out of the picture, they put Sean in there, and man, oh man, Shawn Michaels given another all-time great performance and an incredible matchup with John Cena. And you got to keep in mind too, like, Big Match John isn't quite like Big Match John yet. I mean, dare I say, at this time frame, Hambone, would you say this match with Sean was John Cena's best match he'd had to date at WrestleMania 23?
I very much think you could make that argument, yes. Yeah.
I mean,
it's so ridiculous how many just great matches Sean is having at this time. Everybody talks about the Undertaker matches and all that, but again, like you said, John Cena, half the crowd, is not a Cena fan and thinks that he sucks in the ring and all that, but he went out there and had a great match with Sean. You look at a guy like Shelton Benjamin. I mean, Sean and Shelton just put on some amazing matches at this time, so he's just going in there with really anybody and putting on a banger.
We talk about we joke, oh, he could wrestle a broomstick, but I mean, Sean was literally one of those guys who could wrestle a broomstick. I mean, by God, I think we talked about this in like our WrestleMania reviews, but if you can have a good match against Vince McMahon and make it like one of the best matches on the card, then you're a pretty special, talented individual.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So after Triple H gets injury, comes back from injury. Doesn't really like reunite with Sean. Really, they don't do DX for a little while. He kind of goes off and does his own thing, where he's wrestling, going for the world title, going after Randy Orton at the time, and then of course DX gets reunited again because now Triple H needs help to counteract the legacy, and thus they get reunited pretty much for one last run here, one last time. And I gotta say, man, how?
Yeah.
At least
we did get one more match. It was not a good match,
Oh God, you went there.
but we did get one more match.
You just had to talk
Yeah.
about it, didn't you?
Yeah, we'll talk about it here in a minute. But I want to talk about the rivalry they have with Legacy and how big that was for a guy now who is the face of the company, essentially, Cody Rhodes. Like a young Cody Rhodes being that, like, if you look back at Cody Rhodes' history, this is Cody's first ever really kind of big program. Is this, what the hell are you laughing about now?
One guy is the face of the company, and one guy's locked up in jail.
Oh, yeah, because somebody fucked on him, bro. That's why.
Can we all talk about too, just real quick, how excited like all of us were that Ted DiBiase Jr. was on TikTok for a minute, and then
Yeah, now.
whoops.
Whoopsie.
MJ's making a good point here. She's talking about that hat you got on there, good sir.
Well, MJ knows. She
Flex,
knows.
knows.
flex the shirt too. Flex the
I
shirt.
got the
Come on.
shirt. I got the shirt too.
I got the shirt.
I got the hoodie too. We're good.
But I mean, just think of how instrumental that was, though, for a young Cody Rhodes to get to work with guys like Shawn Michaels and guys like Triple H. And I thought that was a great set of matches that the Legacy had with DX at that time frame. You know, at
Yeah.
SummerSlam, then they had like the submission match at the, I can't remember the name of that pay-per-view, but it was like the submission only pay-per-view they tried doing one time. And then they had the Hell in a Cell match against Shawn and Triple H. I think it was very instrumental in a young Cody Rhodes at that time frame.
Sure.
Like now, obviously, it didn't really work out for Ted for obvious reasons, but hey, that's another story for another time.
I mean, honestly, the Legacy is probably one of my personal biggest what ifs in wrestling, because that group had so much more to do before they broke them up. They were broken up way too
early.
Way too early.
I agree.
I think they could have done a lot more with them, and really, if they had, you know, Ted DiBiase might be in a different place than he is right now in life. Had things worked out differently with that.
Yeah, it really would have, I think. And I'll just say one thing about it and leave it at that. I just find it so ironic, like how his dad, the $1 Million Man, and that like character, that wicked character for so many years, and it's like, holy shit, like. Talk about art imitating life. Fuck. That's fucking crazy, man. But it is what it is, though. And then, like, now, really, after the Legacy feud, it's just kind of like DX is just kind of around, like you say. They work with They have Hornswoggle join them for a little while. They do end up getting. Now, here's the crazy thing to think about DX, right? They didn't even win the tag team titles until like this time frame.
Yeah.
Which I think is like 2008 or 7, I want to say. So.
Yeah.
Now, from DX, they're still around, but at this point, Shawn, it pretty much goes into that feud with The Undertaker and is obsessed over breaking the streak. Oh, makes me worry about Dom after having a deadbeat dad, right?
Yeah.
Poor Dom, such a hardened criminal, man.
Well, he survived jail already, though. You know,
this is true. Like, he can do just about anything. But so this last kind of run, so to speak, for DX, it's really, if you think about it, it's really entwined with The Undertaker, because then you have pretty much Shawn chasing down, and they have arguably what a lot of people say is the greatest WrestleMania match of all time at WrestleMania 25. Came so close to winning, however, he didn't get the W. And then you go into WrestleMania 26 essentially, and DX is still around, but it's like Shawn's just obsessing over like I gotta be the one to end this streak, right? And then from there, you got Shawn puts his career on the line essentially against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 26. And as the saying goes, the rest is history. And thus Shawn Michaels would wrestle his last match, or so we would think. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's interesting to go from those two WrestleManias to where after that, what happens, Hambone? Now you got Triple H stepping in for his friend here and, trying to avenge his buddy who had to retire and try to be the one to end the streak. and he comes oh so close. And I honestly think, and I think we've said this before on this show, I think the series of matches, these 4 years of matches, essentially at WrestleManias with Hunter and Shawn, is arguably Undertaker's best work. I think as far as like at WrestleMania and in-ring, outside of maybe the Kane feud. I mean, it's just like a perfect way to go out. And then you talk about the end of the era, that Hell in a Cell match.
Man.
Yeah.
And Shawn's the referee.
Yeah, I think when it comes to like Undertaker's best matches, I do think that there's also an argument to be made that the reason that we think that is not only because of these matches, but because this is the era where Undertaker, his character had gotten to a point where he was past the dead man stuff. When he first debuted, he was wrestling that way to be the character. But he wanted to get to a place where he could show more of what he could do in the ring. And this was that period where he was being allowed to do that. And we were really seeing like, holy shit, The Undertaker can put on great wrestling matches. I think this period for him gets overshadowed a little bit by the Shawn Michaels and the Triple H matches just because they were so damn good. But I think that's part of the reason as well, is he was finally being able to show, hey, I can actually go in the ring.
Yeah, true words couldn't be said, man. I mean, it was like, we all know about the legend of The Undertaker. Everybody knows about the legend of The Undertaker, but like these truly were like the story that was told and the fact of like long-term storytelling. Because I mean, over 4 years of time frame, I mean, it was so damn good. And I mean,
and one of the parts about that too that I love is I think the part of the Triple H and Undertaker part of that feud that I love the most is the first part of it, where Undertaker's in the ring and Triple H comes out and they just look at each other and they look at the sign. And they didn't have to say anything else. Nothing needed to be said. There was no promo, no nothing. The fans knew what it meant. And I think that just is such a testament to those two men that they could go out and that's all they had to do was look at a sign and we all knew what it meant.
And I think it's so appropriate when you think about it too, how we talked earlier, we were talking about the beginning of this show, the beginnings of DX, and like, one of the earlier big moments was that first Hell in a Cell, how it comes all full circle and they have this Hell in a Cell. And it's, they dubbed as the end of an era, and it really should have been, but it wasn't, was it, Hambone?
No, it wasn't.
One last time.
Last time.
And you know what brought it all to fruition? Let's call a spade. I call it dirty Saudi money.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened as they would meet. What the fuck was it? Was it Crown Jewel? Is that what the show was? I lose track of all the stupid Saudi Arabia shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they bring Shawn out of retirement, and it's Shawn and Triple H, DX back again, going up against the Brothers of Destruction. The only good thing that came out of this moment of this feud was the promo from Kane and Undertaker. I'm sure you've seen it, where it's like they have a blooper, and it's like what was it? I got not 2 words for you. I thought he said something, but it was like, go fuck yourselves, essentially what they said. Like, I guess he said, I got 3 words for you or something, but.
One of my favorite parts about this match, I mean, let's just talk about it real quick. Fucking train wreck. Absolute train wreck. And I mean, honestly, this isn't, if we're just being honest, again, I know I'm a Shawn Michaels mark, but, Shawn probably did the best out of the 4 in this match. Undertaker and Kane, and, they're showing in this match, I feel like it was very apparent that both of them needed to be done very soon.
I will say this. I do feel like, and maybe I'm wrong here, but if I'm thinking about it, I think this is the first time where I really watched like a Triple H match. I was like, oh, fuck, trips. No, we need to stop this.
Yeah. Him getting injured in the beginning. I mean, just everything that could have went wrong in this match. But I think my favorite part of it is that camera shot at the end with Shawn and Triple H in the corner. And you can very clearly see Shawn say to Triple H, we're too old for this shit.
Yep.
It's just like the camera wasn't supposed to catch that, but it did.
Yeah.
And after this train wreck, that's pretty fucking funny.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things too where like I just cannot still stand to see a bald Shawn Michaels. I'm sorry.
Listen,
I gotta see the boy
hold
toy
on.
with the
No.
hair.
No. Let's talk about this real quick. As a guy who is bald, I was all for a bald Shawn Michaels because I am very much a believer that bald is better than balding. And man, he should have embraced it years beforehand because it was clear what was happening. So if you're losing your hair like that, I'm talking to all of you out there. Any of you listening, if you're losing your hair like that, just fucking shave it. I'm telling you, you'll look better, you'll feel better. And Shawn should have done it years before. I was excited to see a bald Shawn Michaels. Again, my hero was embracing me because I was already bald at that point.
One of us. Yeah, well, there you go, man. Well, I think regardless of like everything we've talked about, man, you gotta give credit where credit is due. It's like DX would become, I believe, the is it the second or third faction to go into the Hall of Fame as a faction? I think it was the NWO before them. I can't remember.
I think
so.
Horsemen were before them.
Oh no, you're right. It was the Horsemen, then DX.
Yeah.
So DX being the second faction to go in the Hall
because
of Fame.
because X-Pac was a 2-time Hall of Famer when they put him in with the NWO.
That's true. That is true.
See, we did the Horsemen last week, and now we're doing DX.
And next week we're doing the NWO. It's all
you guys totally planned that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was the plan the whole time. They're professionals, these two.
We got this shit figured out. We got it all locked out.
And then on week 4, it's gonna be too sweet
because we're talking Bullet Club. So there you go. So
nice.
Yeah, a little sneak peek of everything we got coming here on Learning the Ropes. But speaking of learning the ropes here and what we like to do a little segment here called Fantasy Warfare. So for this week, here's what I present to you, gentlemen: Degeneration X versus the Elite. Ooh, right? So we got, yeah. Stew on that one for a minute, will you?
Which version of the Elite am I getting?
I would say the Bucks and Kenny, obviously.
Yeah.
I guess.
And which version of DX are we talking?
This is true too.
I
think you have to have Shawn. All right, let's do this. Shawn, Triple H, and Chyna. Because without them, you don't have DX against Kenny and the Bucks.
I like where your head's at. I would, if I were fantasy booking, I could choose. It would be Shawn, Triple H, and probably X-Pac and Billy Gunn. I'm going to take the 4 best workers of DX against Kenny, the Bucks, and Hangman. That's what I'd like to see.
Okay. I like where you're going with this.
I'd like to see, man, you fucking X-Pac and HBK versus the Bucks. Oh my God, my nipples are getting hard over here thinking about it.
You're not the only one, brother. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby.
You can hang a raincoat off my nipples right now. That's how excited I'm getting.
Don't get more goddamn excited than that.
That is true, but I'm almost more intrigued by that trios with what you were saying.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's kind of like this.
I don't know if it would be that, like,
you got to have those 3 when you're talking DX, I feel like. I mean, some could argue and say you don't have to have Chyna, but I think, all due respect, you need Chyna because Chyna was a huge part of the first DX. And then I would say the Elite, you don't have the Elite without Kenny and the Bucks. That's the glue of that group. Yeah. So that's kind of why Daddy Magic would be proud of Hambone.
I was saying, just think of if we could have that. Think of the crowd once we get, say Kenny comes in and then Chyna comes in and they just face off.
Yeah.
And just
yeah.
think of like the crowd, how the crowd would explode just seeing that.
Yeah, that was the first
Yeah.
thing I pictured when that was pitched.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would think you get the six. Let's say you get in the ring there, right? And then you have Shawn Michaels facing off against Kenny Omega.
Mm.
Fuck.
Mhm.
Fuck. I mean, dude, like that would just be insane. I mean,
Sweet chin music versus super kicks.
right? It's just like, yeah, it would be the Bucks would be throwing 30 of them, and then Shawn's only got to throw one though. To his
That's
credit.
all he needs. The one.
That's how you do it, boys. I mean, okay? You could even argue. Let's say this. Let's just do it with all the DX members, essentially. So let's say it's the Outlaws, X-Pac, Triple H, Shawn. If you do like a 5-on-5, and then you put in there Hangman with the Bucks with Kenny, and then
You got to throw in Cody.
I guess you could throw in Cody.
Ooh.
Let's put Cody in there.
I like that. Get a little Triple H Cody action.
Yeah, I mean that would be insane on so many levels.
That's a War Games match, is what that is.
Ooh,
that's a War Games.
Ooh, I like it. So, guys, pick me a winner.
Oh man! All right, if we're talking in their prime, I have
Let's
to go
talk
with
in their
DX.
prime.
I gotta go
as much
DX.
as I love the Elite, I agree. I gotta go with
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
But I mean, you can argue, like, think of the Elite this way: is like the significance of the Elite. Like, dude, would we have? I mean, we would have AEW probably to a certain extent, but it wouldn't be it wouldn't be the same without the Elite.
Yeah. And again, I think that comparison too comes with kind of what I said earlier, where we're talking about two very different eras in wrestling. You know, the Elite have been so influential in this era of wrestling, but we're at a point in pop culture just in general where wrestling is much more of a niche thing. You know, back in the 90s when DX was popular and all that, they were transcending wrestling and becoming part of pop culture and mainstream because we didn't have as many options as we have now. You know, you only had 100 channels on TV and you had to watch something. So 8 million people were watching wrestling. But now you have streaming services and all that. Whatever your niche is, you can go off and find it. And I think that it's not a fair comparison because I think they're both just as influential in their era of wrestling, just in a different way.
Yeah, and it's also difficult too because one story is still being written. And then also, like, whereas with the other, we kind of like know the in ring, but yeah, when we took a look at that first like OG trio, like it wasn't that close for me.
It's like you say, it's different errors, you know, but that's what's fun about fantasy booking and fantasy warfare. So. Well, here on Learning the Ropes, we always like to do a little pop quiz, but I think we're going to turn the tables here because I think B-roll, you got a little something you want to do with Mr. Hambone and I.
That is right. I have flipped the tables on you all, and I'm going to give you guys a DX pop quiz.
Oh, boy.
Okay. If I can figure this out. Okay,
professionals, like I said.
When Degeneration X returned, who did they have a rivalry with? Well, this question is not
which time frame though.
Not worded very well.
Times. Okay. I'm going to assume you're probably talking about like 2006 with the Spirit Squad is what I'm assuming you're going with.
Yeah, this is multiple choice. So let me give you the options.
Okay.
Jonathan Coachman and the Spirit Squad, Mr. McMahon and Shane McMahon, Big Show, Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch, or Stephanie and Linda McMahon?
Well, I mean, I guess you're going to say Vince and Shane, I suppose. I mean, the Spirits. Who did you say was with the Spirit Squad, though, on that?
Jonathan Coachman, and you are correct.
Okay, because this is like, fuck, I don't remember if Coachman was in on that. I don't think he was. He could have been. Who knows?
Which of the following is a sign or catchphrase used by Degeneration X? Crotch chop, mooning, suck it, or all of these?
All the above.
The preview of this quiz was much better than what it's been giving me so far.
Yeah.
Which team did Degeneration X defeat in the main event of Vengeance 2006? Big Show, Mr. McMahon and Shane McMahon, Edge, Randy Orton and Eric Bischoff, Lance Cade, Trevor Murdoch and Jonathan Coachman, or the Spirit Squad?
We talked about it earlier. The Spirit Squad. Yeah.
This quizmaker loves Jonathan Coachman, though. That's all I can say.
Maybe it is the Coachman that's doing it.
Okay, this one's going to be a good one. What quadricep muscle did Triple H tear in his match at New Year's Revolution 2006? The left quadricep? The right quadricep? He tore his quadricep on Raw. He tore his tricep instead of his quadricep. Quadricep.
It's lost all meaning now. We've said it.
Yeah,
so
I'm
many
so
times.
confused right now. I'm gonna. Okay, so I feel like it was the good quads what he tore, like, and I feel like when he first tore the quad, the first entry was the right. I'm gonna say the left.
I was thinking left too.
Yeah.
Oh.
Was it the right?
It was the right.
Okay. Okay.
Unless this quiz is wrong.
What else you got for us?
Why didn't Shawn Michaels feel comfortable doing the original crotch chop when DX returned?
Well, because he found Jesus.
He was
right?
all Jesus-y.
He let Jesus take the
There you
wheel.
go. I didn't even read the options for you. When did DX reunite the second time? June 12th, 2006, June 13th, 2006, or June 15th, 2006?
Now, see, I'm not gonna know that.
Yeah.
Specific.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't remember dates like that. I'll choose one though. I'll say the second one.
The 13th?
Yes.
I'll say the 15th.
You were both wrong. It was the 12th.
Well, there you go. I feel like this quiz was also made in like 2006 or 7 as well.
Yeah,
You
right.
shut up.
It's very,
Shut up.
very focused on that.
Yeah,
version
it's
of
like,
DX.
what the fuck? Like, can we talk about other eras of DX?
You shut up and leave the quiz I found on Google alone. What pay-per-view was the first time that both HBK and Triple H told their opponents to suck it? Backlash 06, Judgment Day 06, Vengeance 06, or WrestleMania 22?
Yeah, we're not gonna. This is literally somebody who only knows one version of DX.
Dude, okay, yeah, I think we're done at this point. I'm sorry, buddy, but this is like so every question's from 2006. And I don't know how accurate that is the first time they said suck it on a pay-per-view. I'm not, I'm done at this point. Thanks for playing, but no. Like,
let me see what the other questions were.
Tell me they're all 2006 too. It's like, come on, man.
It looks like the other ones don't have anything to do with 2006, but.
And we didn't even talk about when they gave Michael Cole a wedgie and threw him into the showers. Oh
yeah.
God.
So many great moments. Like,
great.
I mean, ultimately, though, at the end of the day, I mean,
2006 was clearly their peak, though.
Oh, of course, according to this exam. Oh my gosh.
We could also do which member of DX are you?
Oh, well.
Well,
genetics.
we know who I am.
I'm probably I don't know.
Having to make me say quadricep 5 times was pretty fun though. So I don't even know.
It's lost all meaning. It's not even a word anymore to me.
I don't even know where the quadricep muscle is.
So here's the real question. MJ brings up a good question. Who's the next McMahon to blow a quad? I mean, Vince
Ooh.
did 2. Triple H has done 2. Shane's done 1. Yeah.
Why do you think Stephanie retired?
Well, yeah, maybe she's working out though, man. Maybe she works out and tears the quad. Who knows?
What is that? Is that which member are you? Is that a multiple choice quiz?
I don't know.
Oh. I didn't know if it was just like a randomizer or if you like had to answer questions or what.
I'll click on it.
Oh boy. We're going off the rails here.
Yep.
I get a virus because of this. It's your fault, though.
It's not our. Hey, you're the one who came
Listen,
with the quiz.
If there's a way to end a DX podcast, it's with catching a virus.
There you go. Yeah, I should have told you to wear protection tonight. Pal.
Yeah,
Sorry.
there's too many options on this quiz.
Probably like asking 50 questions. What's your
Yeah.
favorite color?
Which word best describes you? Scrappy, ambitious, talkative, rebellious, athletic, charismatic, strong.
Yeah, I hate shit like that.
Mm.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, no, too time consuming. But as we're coming down to the close here of learning the ropes tonight, I want to ask you guys this: like, what's the legacy of Degeneration X that they leave behind?
Well, I mean, like I said, I truly believe that DX is the beginning of the Attitude Era. I don't think without DX that you have that boom period. I really don't. 2 of the greatest of all time coming together to do one of the most influential groups of all time. Probably, I would go so far as to say the most influential group since the Horsemen at that time. I don't think that there was since the Horsemen ending to DX, there wasn't another group in between that were as influential. Maybe NWO started a year earlier, so I guess we could go with NWO. But still, one of those 2. So I think that that's their legacy. I think that they are going to be remembered as 2 of the greatest and one of the most influential groups in the biggest boom period of wrestling ever.
Yeah. I think what I, think about it from what I know and everything, just game changing. And honestly, like just 2 friends that were comfortable being themselves, really. Like what you see was what you got, and they just,
Yeah,
like a bunch of idiots.
the best way I think I can describe it is you go to a 5-star restaurant, right? And like you order your meal and you get your steak. That's the piece de resistance, right? So like in the Attitude Era, that was kind of like Stone Cold, right? But when you get done with the meal, what are you talking about the most? That steak was fucking great, but man, them scalloped potatoes were the fucking bomb. And that's like DX essentially. Because you just cannot have one without the other. Like Hambone said, like the Attitude Era, as great as it was, and there was a ton of superstars in that era, if you take DX out of the equation, it's not nearly as edgy.
No.
It's not. And DX, that's what they did, is they gave the edge to the WWF and the Attitude Era in that time frame, man.
Yeah. Yep.
And
yep.
like
and
you
again,
say,
I kept saying 2 of the most influential, and I should rephrase that because, like I said, the second version of DX was just as great, just as influential. All 5 of them. So all 4 of those men and that one woman, they all count as well.
And the thing is, too, we talk, if you look in films, often or not, the original is so good, the sequel usually sucks, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the case with this, with
No.
DX. Like, I mean, I'm just saying, what did Edge give him a dad joke? Nice. Very, very nice, MJ. But no, man, the thing is it's like the different interpretations of it. Like maybe towards the end it wasn't as funny or as memorable, but like the amount of time they were together, though, especially there in the beginning and those memorable moments that we've talked about all throughout the night. And Hambone, like you said earlier, there's still a ton of stuff we didn't touch on with DX that they did. So I mean, I think that just goes to show you their legacy, and that's why they're one of the all-time greatest factions of all time, and that's why they all went into the Hall of Fame together at the same time, and rightfully so.
Yep. So many other male genitalia jokes that could have been made. I mean, we could have talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, but it really it is crazy. So I think a good way to close would be, and we've touched on this a lot, but for all of us to pick like a favorite DX like moment.
Oh, fuck.
I mean, honestly, for me, it's that State of the Union. I absolutely just love that.
It's hard, but I'm gonna probably say I probably got to go with. It's a tie kind of for me. Them impersonating the Nation, but also invading WCW. That's probably my two favorite.
Yeah, for me, it would also be the State of the Union. Like I said, they were just so the comedic timing at that point was just so it was so good. But yeah, that's definitely my favorite.
Yeah. Couldn't agree with you more. Well, we've been talking DX all here tonight, and as we are coming to the close, as we always do here on Learning the Ropes, we got to close it out right with one last plug-a-palooza. And first and foremost, let's give our guest, the Wrestle Talk Drip God, Hambone here, the floor. Why don't you plug your stuff, brother?
Yeah, you can find me right here on TikTok at Hambone with a couple A's, couple O's in there. You can find me on Twitter, notorious_bone, and on Instagram under my shoot name, Thomas.Cummings920.
There you go, man. And of course, we mentioned it earlier, all this week on Cole TV. Of course, you can catch a replay of this anytime you want on Cole TV. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Brand new episode of Pro Wrestling 60, where we cover everything that happened in the week of professional wrestling in 60 minutes or less. You can catch that tomorrow. And on Wednesday, you can catch a brand new episode of our show, The Hunt. And this one's a very special one because it's Free Comic Book Day. So it's a fun episode coming to you Wednesday. And as you know, we're talking factions here on Learning the Ropes. So next week, we are going to do a deep dive on the NWO. And of course, there's only one person or two people I can think of that we got to have on for that. And I know one.
Let me guess one.
Yes.
One of them is Dad Hat.
You are correct. So Dad Hat will be joining us next week as well as a potential other guest. We're going to see how that goes. But yeah, we're going to talk about the history of the NWO, and that's going to be a fun episode. And always look at the merch. See the shirt? The shirt. No, that's not FTR. That's LTR. Living and learning, baby. And you can get this merch. Where can you get it at, Mr. B-Roll?
Sweet Dolphy Creations, something Big Cartel. Put the link in the comments. Thank you. Or you can also see it at the link in my bio. Or just go buy some merch. Don't buy any of the chubby merch.
Don't find it, you fucking marks.
That's right. It's some good quality merch, some good shirts, And you can get not only our merch, but some of your other favorite Wrestle Talk creators' merch over there as well at Sweet Doll Face Creation. So check it out. Well, gentlemen, we have come to a close here, but this has been a fun night. Always love. Oh, wait a minute. You got something else. You go right ahead.
Yes. I can only think of one way on how to end this, fellas.
There you go. Throw it up. Throw it up. Oh, Hambone's going all in, brother. Oh, I love it. I love it.
We'll see you next time.
Hambone, you have a good one, buddy. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We will see you next week.
Thanks for having me again, fellas.
Absolutely, my friend. And we'll see you all next week here on Learning the Ropes.